The Children of Men by P.D. James was published in 1992 and was later made into a film directed by Alfonso Cuarón in 2006. How are they different? Which one do I think is better? Stick around to find out. But first, this video will contain spoilers about the book and the film, so here's your warning. In James's novel, the year is 2021 and the human race is quite literally coming to an end. Since 1995, no babies have been born because in that year, all males unexpectedly became infertile. That is the premise of the book. In the film, it is the year 2027. No babies have been born in 18 years instead of 26, and instead of the men being infertile, it's the women. Both take place in England. The book starts off as a series of journal entries written in the first person by the main character, Theo Farron. And then, when you get to chapter 6, it unexpectedly turns into a third-person narration. And then, for the rest of the book, it kind of goes back and forth in between those two formats, which I thought was a very interesting narrative style. Now, the most compelling aspect of the plot is the fact that there is a woman that they discover is pregnant. And that's a big deal because nobody's gotten pregnant in more than 2 decades. Society has collapsed into this kind of nihilistic, depressed state of dystopia. Now, you don't get to that point in the book until about halfway through, and I thought it was a little bit slow at first, and once you kind of get to that element of the plot where they have to get this woman to safety so she can safely deliver her baby away from the authoritarian government, things really do pick up. The character in the novel who is pregnant, her name is Julian, and throughout the book there's several mentions of how Theo and Julian are falling in love, despite having very few interactions and not really knowing each other all that well. You're supposed to apparently believe that these two have some deep connection with each other, and it just didn't feel earned to me and didn't make a ton of sense. I also couldn't help but feel a sense while reading the book of being underwhelmed by the stakes. I found it somewhat difficult to sympathize with the group of rebels who are against the authoritarian government of England in this novel, and I think that's because the level of authoritarianism, when you compare it to governments, say, in other dystopian novels like 1984, the level of authoritarianism of this government in Children of Men is relatively mild. I mean, the people of England are generally free. The group of rebels, they do have legitimate concerns about certain policies of the government, but James, in her novel, gives a compelling counter-argument from the perspective of the government, at least in my opinion, of why the certain policies are in place. Now, all that being said, it might sound like I didn't really like this book. I did, and that is because I really, really liked about the last third or so of this book. Once the characters kind of go on the run and are on the journey to find a place where Julian can give birth, it is a very exciting read. I couldn't put it down, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, the reason for the infertility in the novel is never stated. It's a mystery. But I do have a theory, and I'd like to know your thoughts. So I believe that nobody can have children. I believe that this scourge upon mankind is a punishment from God, similar to the Great Flood in the story of Noah's Ark. First of all, God and religion more generally are a constant point of discussion among characters in the novel. Not so much in the movie, but in the novel, it is talked about a lot. It's a through-line theme throughout the book. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the mother and father of the firstborn child in more than 2 decades are both devout Christians. The 2006 film adaptation, Children of Men, got rid of the word "the" in the title, because why not? I want to start off by saying that the cinematography in this film is absolutely masterful. Alfonso Cuarón directed the shit out of this movie. The use of long, one-take tracking shots is second to none, and it is used to perfection. All three of those scenes are white knuckle, adrenaline pumping. I also think that Clive Owen gives one of the best performances of his career in this film as the main character, Theo Farron. He gives a very quiet, understated performance, which makes sense given his character's backstory, which is pretty tragic. We'll get to that in a second. This movie is quite different from the book, though. And I read that Alfonso Cuarón intentionally did not read the book. The characters have been switched around drastically. So in the book, the character who is pregnant, her name is Julian. And there is a character, an ex-wife of Theo. Her name is Helena. Anyway, in the film, the pregnant character is an immigrant named Key. And then there is a character named Julian in the film, and that is Theo's ex-wife, who's played by Julianne Moore. That, a little confusing. Also, one of the main characters in the book, probably the second or third main character, the Warden of England, the head of the authoritarian government, his name is Zan Lipiat. He's also Theo's cousin. That character doesn't appear in the film at all. And I found that to be disappointing. He's replaced by a character named Nigel in the movie, who's played by Danny Houston, also a high-ranking government official and Theo's cousin, but he's only in one scene, and the only reason he's in it is to help Theo get some documentation he needs to get through some security checkpoints with the pregnant character. The revolutionary rebel group known as the Five Fishes. In the book, it's actually only 5 people. In the movie, they're just called the Fishes, and there's a lot of them. In the film, the Fishes' really only major complaint against the government is its treatment of immigrants or refugees. While in the book, the Fishes also want the government to abolish a ritual called the Quietus, reform the island prison colony, do away with mandatory sperm testing, among other things. In fact, in the book, Theo actually goes to visit Zan and discuss these grievances, which is a part of the book that I really liked. Speaking of the Quietus, it is referenced in the movie, but it's treated much differently. In the book, it is a mass suicide ritual where people dress in robes and get on ships and then drown themselves in the sea. While in the film, it is an at-home suicide kit handed out by the government. The character Jasper, who's a friend of Theo's, is not really in the book much at all, but he's got a major role in the film. He's played by Michael Caine. In the book, he shoots himself in the head, and in the movie, he's executed by the Fishes. In the book, Theo and his now ex-wife had a little girl named Natalie that was tragically killed by Theo when he was backing his car out of the driveway. He hit and killed her, I think, when she was maybe 3 years old. In the movie, Theo and his ex-wife had a son named Dylan who died from the flu. So I mentioned that I really liked how the book ended. I won't go into a lot of detail, but there's this very dramatic standoff between Zan and Theo that ends with one of them getting shot. And the film, however, ends with this really intense shootout through the city scene of Theo and Key avoiding all this gunfire. Sorry. They end up escaping England on a really small boat waiting for this ship to rescue them, operated by this group known as the Human Project. 2 totally different endings. Both were extremely entertaining, but I do think that I liked the ending of the book better. So which one do I think is better? This is an insanely hard choice to make because I do think that the movie is fan-freaking-tastic. The movie really wows with its cinematography and its direction, but I also think it lacks a lot of the deeper dives into themes that are explored in the book. You know, not only God and religion, but also themes like globalism versus isolationism and despair versus hope. And I have to admit, while this is not my favorite book of all time, I did find the final third of it extremely entertaining, and I really liked how it ended. So I'm gonna give the slight edge to P.D. James and her novel. For real though, if you like dystopian films and you have not seen Children of Men, check it out. It will have you on the edge of your seat multiple times. And to be fair, I might end up changing my mind on this later on down the road. I don't know. It happens sometimes. All right, what do you think? Have you read the book? Have you seen the film? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos in the near future. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later.